Hello, Broadway besties, and welcome to From the Mezzanine, the Broadway podcast for the Broadway fans, where we talk about all things Broadway news, Broadway grosses, and let's be honest, all of the tea and gossip that happens week to week in the Broadway stratosphere. My dear Broadway besties, how are we doing? I am your host, Lindsey Stone. I'm super happy that you have met me here today. Hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving, and I'm glad you're joining me here from wherever you are. This is going to be a little bit of a very unique episode. I am being brave, guys. So I right now am back home with my family in Texas, enjoying a bit of holiday fun, and I am doing something a little different with this episode. I'm recording this ahead of time. I am going to do a little revisited moment. We are all obsessing over Wicked for Good, and you know what? I don't want that fun to stop. So since I am away, I didn't want to just not release an episode. I thought, what if I was brave and we revisited my very first episode of From the Mezzanine I ever recorded back in 2023. Oh my gosh, are we really doing this? Am I really allowing you guys to listen to me before I had any bit of expertise? Like, okay, I did have some expertise, but really, it's just crazy to me. I've always been so icked out, and scared of listening to those early episodes because, like, what was she doing? She had no idea what she was doing. But I actually listened to it and I was like, I forgot some of this. And I used to always do not just the Broadway news, but I would do a story from the stage. And it was like a research story about some sort of Broadway subject. I would cover the flops of Broadway, history on some of our favorite stage actors, and then, of course, history of shows. My very first episode was the history of Wicked, how Wicked came to be, how Idina and Kristin Chenoweth got cast. And it's pretty good and really informational. And I just listened to it all the way through. And I was like, I completely forgot about the fact that Idina Menzel was the very first person to ever walk into the audition room for Elphaba. That is crazy. So I know maybe you've heard this episode already. Hopefully it was 2.5 years ago, whenever it originally aired. But hey, I wrote the notes and I still was surprised by a lot of the things that I heard. Maybe that is a testament to my memory. Anyways, we're not going to go down that yellow brick road, but I hope you'll enjoy this little revisited moment where we're just going to learn about Wicked again. So I'll see y'all next week, and yeah, enjoy little young Lindsey. She sounds so different. You're going to hear it in just a second. Hello, everybody, and welcome to From the Mezzanine. I'm your host, Lindsey Stone, and this is my first podcast. I am so excited. This podcast has been, I was going to say years in the making, but it's been a solid year in the making, and now it's finally coming to fruition, and I could not be more stoked. And I have to give credit where credit is due. My best friend, Alex. This was her and my brainchild, and y'all will be sure to meet her on an upcoming episode soon. From the Mezzanine is a Broadway podcast. Essentially, every single episode is going to cover whatever the top news stories are of that week, and then we'll go through a story. Today, we are doing the history of a Broadway musical, but we'll also do things as theater icons' backstories, people you never knew got their start on Broadway, theater true crime, and then next week, we're going to be doing Broadway's biggest flops. And I am so excited for y'all to come along. These podcasts are going to get uploaded every Tuesday morning, so you can always be sure to count on us every single Tuesday. And essentially, my vision for this podcast is going to be a place where my generation can geek out, nerd out, and learn about Broadway, the things that we care about, the shows we love, the characters and the stars that we adore. This is going to be our place. I needed that, and so I'm sure somebody else out there wants that just as much as I do. And now a little bit about me, just so you can get to know me a little bit better. Hi, hello. Once again, my name is Lindsey Stone. It is so nice to meet you. I grew up in Waco, Texas. I started doing theater in second grade, I believe, and I followed through all throughout high school, was in plays, musicals, all things of the sort. And then I graduated and went to the University of North Texas, where I got my major in marketing and my minor in theater. Then I moved here to Fort Worth, Texas, where I am currently, and I'm working as a marketing coordinator for a firm here locally. And I just need an outlet. That's really the purpose of this podcast, is a place where we can come, speak freely, catch up on what's going on in the theater world, and also learn a little bit too. So hopefully somebody out there needs that same outlet that I am searching for, and this podcast can be that for you. Let me know what you think. My Instagram is at From the Mezzanine podcast. With that being said, I just want to give a little disclaimer. I am not a professional in the theater industry. My expertise really goes as far as having a minor in theater. I just have a lot of opinions. I keep up with a lot that's going on in, who's getting hired, what shows are getting dropped. I have been to New York 3 times in the past 9 months. And so this is just a huge passion of mine. But like I said, not a professional, and I obviously don't have the greatest expertise when it comes to all of my opinions and critiques, because they are just that, opinions. And that is as far as I will go with the disclaimer. Next up, we're going to talk about our story of the week, you guys. Today, we are going to be discussing Wicked. I feel like this is a lot of our introductions to Broadway. I remember when my mom first bought this CD. It had to have been about 2003, maybe a couple years later. But me and my older sister, Aubrey, would sit on every road trip with our portable CD player and just listen to that tape all the way through, sharing the headphones. This is when we had wired headphones, okay? And she'd have one in her ear and I would have the other in mine, so we couldn't pull apart. We couldn't go too far away. And she would always be Elphaba and I was always Glinda, not because I had the range for it, you guys. I guess those were just, our character types. And What Is This Feeling was our favorite song to sing in the car. I'm sure we annoyed everybody. But this was growing up. We loved Wicked. I saw it for the first time in 2013, so almost 10 years ago, for my 15th birthday. And then I saw it again in 2021 with my boyfriend and my sister. And I was just blown away all over again. This show is timeless. And that is why 10 years later, it is still on Broadway, and it is the 5th longest running Broadway show in history. If maybe you're not as familiar with Wicked as I am, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a synopsis, and then we'll run through its inception, where Stephen Schwartz and Winnie Holzman got the idea for it, and then how were our leading ladies cast? Where did they find them? What were they doing? Don't worry, we'll discuss it. All right, kicking off the synopsis. Elphaba's mom had an affair with a mystery man who gives her a green elixir. She gets pregnant and voila, a green baby with witchy powers. Lord forbid. Elphaba is now older and it's time to go on to college. In comes blonde, preppy, popular Glinda. Glinda makes Elphaba her new project, and they become friends and travel to Oz because the wizard wants to meet Elphaba. Meanwhile, the animals in Oz are equal to humans, with rights. They can talk, they can learn, they can read, all the things. But for an unknown reason, the wizard, they are losing their ability to do so. Basically, they're unevolving back into animals, the animals we know today. It's Elphaba's mission to stop this. While casting spells, she accidentally turns the people close to her into various characters from The Wizard of Oz. Bach turns into the Tin Man, Fiyero, the love interest, into a scarecrow, and one of the animals she tried to save into the Cowardly Lion. Now we are nearing the end of the show, and Dorothy arrives with her entourage and pours water on Elphaba to kill her. But through some smoke and mirrors and a trap door, Elphaba survives, unbeknownst to Dorothy and the crew. it is pretty difficult to condense down, 3 hours of a show into a few paragraphs. So hopefully that did the trick if you've never seen it before. You get what you get whenever it's such a long show. Also a pretty convoluted show. Like, you're just supposed to accept the fact that she drank a green elixir and all of a sudden had a green baby. Sure, why not? It's Oz. So let's dive a little bit deeper into how this story was made. How did the Oklahoma beauty queen Kristin Chenoweth and New York native wedding/bar mitzvah singer Idina Menzel get the roles of a lifetime that ultimately catapulted them into superstardom? It all began with a call. Stephen Schwartz remembers getting a call from his friend, John Buccino. John invited Stephen to meet him in Hawaii to give him some company, all expenses paid. Stephen Schwartz's response? I am so there. You know that moment in a movie or a musical, let's say, when the character is packing their bag, ready to head out on the journey of a lifetime? Think Live in Living Color from Catch Me If You Can, or Journey to the Past from Anastasia, or Corner of the Sky from Pippin. Also written by Stephen Schwartz, if you didn't know. Well, I like to think that in this moment, Schwartz had a similar feeling. Little did he know this trip would lead to the creation of the 5th longest running Broadway show in history. It was in the late 90s, and Schwartz arrived in Hawaii. He met up with his friends John Buccino and Holly Near for a snorkeling excursion. Holly brought up this interesting book she was reading at the time. Yep, it was a book by the name of Wicked, written by Gregory Maguire. Stephen Schwartz was intrigued. He loved the plot and quickly realized what a great idea this would be for a musical. He recounts, quote, "It was one of those moments when as soon as I heard the idea, I thought, oh, this is for me. I love this idea. And as soon as I got back to the mainland, I called my lawyer and said, okay, somebody has the rights to this book. Find out who's got the rights. Meanwhile, I'm going to get the book and read it because I think I want to do this." And that is how it all got started. Winnie Holzman, the Wicked book writer, she's not evil, but, she wrote the book for Wicked, and Mark Platt, the producer, who is, also Ben's dad, Ben Platt. Yes, okay, him. They dove into hashing out the outline from the highly convoluted plot the original book entailed. For example, rather than focusing primarily on the story of Elphaba, as the 1995 Gregory Maguire book does, Wicked takes a more even approach, giving each witch their spotlight. Another surprising twist the book includes is that, spoiler alert, rather than Elphaba's mother's affair, with the wizard being so hush-hush and a secret like it is in the musical, Elphaba's dad is highly aware and even approves of the affair. So much so that the mother and him engage in a throuple with a different man who could quite possibly be Nessa's true father. You can see how this would get a little bit confusing, right? I'm even having a hard time keeping up. All of this to say that the book had some kinks that needed some smoothing out. Stephen Schwartz remembers, quote, "Once we started writing, even though things have changed and will continue to change, songs get dropped or rewritten or scenes get combined, the essence of the show and the structure of it hasn't changed. When Joe Manganiello came in as director, he, of course, had several ideas and suggestions, many of which we are doing because we thought they were terrific, but nothing of which I would really call substantially changing the structure." Quote, "Speaking of songs changing, the electric Dancing Through Life, one of my favorite songs, was introduced near the end of the script's completions. It replaced the original version titled, Which Way is the Party? I can totally see that. Once the script was written, characters created, and the songs had taken flight, there was one more essential step: finding our leading ladies. This is Idina Menzel's story. Idina was born May 30th, 1971 in Manhattan, New York. Could she possibly be set up better? Oh, if only. Her family then moved to New Jersey and then to Somerset on Long Island. At age 15, Idina got a taste for the stage, singing at bar mitzvahs, as she was also attending the Tisch School of Arts. Idina earned her Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree in drama in 1992. Interesting fact, Idina actually changed her last name from Menzel with a T, Mentzel, to Menzel, no T, which she found better reflected the pronunciation her family adopted in the U.S. Idina also recorded a demo of the song In Your Eyes for the Eurovision Song Contest in 1993. And guess what? It won. She was only paid $75 for the job. Rent was Idina's first professional Broadway job. Let me repeat that. Rent was Idina's first professional Broadway job. Wow. The casting director, Bernie Tesley, was searching for their sensual and outrageous Marine by perusing dance clubs, art shows, basically with the mindset, if I were Marine, where would I be? They wanted raw, genuine talent, not necessarily classically trained, that would bring the rugged rock and roll performance Rent required. Idina auditioned with When a Man Loves a Woman, and they knew they'd found their Marine. Idina, in her theater debut, was nominated for a Tony for featured actress, which she was not awarded. Don't worry, it'll look up for you, Idina. I'm not worried about you. Idina performed with the cast of Rent until July 1st, 1997. She remarks that she feels as though she faded into obscurity for the next 8 years. In that time, she released her first solo album and performed in various off-Broadway shows. But let's get back to Wicked territory, shall we? In 2001, auditions began to find our green goddess. Auditions were originally scheduled for September 12th in New York City, the day following the 9/11 terrorist attack. Those taking part in casting flew to the city a week prior to the audition date. On that fateful morning of September 11th, Winnie Holzman and Stephen Schwartz found themselves shocked beyond belief. After a few traumatizing days of grieving their city and community, auditions did resume. The creative team, made up of Schwartz, Holzman, and Mantello, were prepared to search for their witches. Idina was the first person to walk through that door. They knew she had exactly what they needed. Idina's Wicked journey began December 2001 with the first reading. She had been working on a show called Ada, which she stepped away from when she got the call offering her the role of a lifetime. Idina adopted the character naturally and took the role to the stage on its pre-Broadway trial in San Francisco until she flew to Broadway in 2003 for 8 performances a week. Now, Kristin Chenoweth's story. Kristin, originally born Kristy Chenoweth, is from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, which is a suburb of Tulsa, and she was adopted at the age of 5 to chemical engineer parents. She grew up performing in gospel churches throughout her town. She graduated from Oklahoma City University with a bachelor in musical theater in the 90s and a master's in opera performance later in 92. Fun fact, Kristin participated in beauty pageants, very Glinda of her, and was second runner-up for the Miss Oklahoma pageant. While in college, Kristin performed at the Lyric Theater in performances such as Liesl and the Sound of Music and June and Gypsy. She also was crowned Most Promising Up-and-Coming Singer for the Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions. This won her a full scholarship to the Philadelphia Academy of Vocal Arts. However, her further academic plans were thrown out the window when she was helping a friend move to New York City and spontaneously auditioned for the Paper Mill Playhouse's production of Animal Crackers and was cast as Arabella Rittenhouse. She was in New York to stay and begin her show-stopping career. Kristen performed in various productions after her stint in Animal Crackers and even toured with Phantom as Christine in Germany. Who knew? Kristen made her Broadway debut in 1997 as Precious McGuire in the musical Steel Pier. The show ran 76 performances over the 2 months that it was open. It was nominated for a whopping 11 Tonys, but somehow did not walk away with a single one. Kristen appeared in Encore's 1998 stage concert of Strike Up the Band and received great reviews. Now the ball was rolling. In 1999, Kristen was cast as Sally in the revival of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. You have to remember the blonde Annie-style wig. Anyways, I would implore you to look up their 1999 Tony Award performance if you haven't, because yes, adults playing under the age of 12 may seem a little bizarre, but wouldn't you rather listen to a classically trained musical performer rather than a teeny bopper who can probably get a little pitchy at times? Anyways, it is well worth the watch, and you'll see how she secured the bubbly, boisterous Glinda. Kristen won the Tony and the Drama Desk Award, which catapulted her on-Broadway career. She starred in a short-lived comic play, Epic Proportions, and was also in another Encore's production. This time, it was On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. Okay, now I'm not going to lie, this part gets a little shady, as now when I research Kristen's early beginnings in Wicked, all of the websites are just discussing the Ariana Grande of it all. But I did find one source that says her Tony win secured her spot at the table read for Glinda, and that they initially envisioned Glinda as a supporting member to Elphaba's story. But after the chemistry and talent poured out of Chenoweth, they knew what they had to do, or what she certainly deserved for her character. Kristen originated the role from the very beginning in those early days in San Francisco. After portraying the dashing good witch of the West for 9 months, she said farewell to the role that she so deeply loves, she still loves, and the role that is still ranking #1 on many people's dream role list, and maybe mine. I mean, if God had blessed me with that range, definitely would be up there. Anyways, Kristin and Idina were both nominated for Best Actress in a Musical in 2004. And by what I'm sure was an extremely tough decision, Idina ultimately took home her much-deserved first Tony Award. Wicked is still running today at the Gershwin Theater in New York City and is nationally touring in the US right now. And if they have the 2 leading ladies who I saw back in 2021, then I would run to go and see it. They could not have been better. It was so outstanding. And that's the story, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you benefited from it, and I hope you learned something. And thank you so much for listening to my first episode. I hope you'll join me next Tuesday. All sources for this podcast will be in the show notes. And next week, like I mentioned earlier, we are going to be doing a 180 and covering Broadway's biggest flops, with, of course, as you can always expect, the top Broadway news of that week. I'll see y'all then. Bye!